this is so much fun, you guys. It's really an easy project to do. I highly recommend it if you are beginning to sew. The one thing I'm going to ask you to do is to test your sewing machine to make sure that it can go through the layers here, because this one didn't work too well. So I'm going to run it through my other machine that I know can handle layers better. But very, very, very easy to make. Extremely functional. This is going to be a great gift for anybody, really. So anyway, yeah, let's finish this up. So I'm going to follow some of the instructions I found online for these scarf towels, and they're pretty basic to make. I just wanted to kind of have an idea of the final like sizing for the scarf section, but I can always also measure my neck and, you know, do it that way and just add the seam allowance to it. But the first thing I'm going to do is press the material that I purchased at my local Joann, which is no longer here. But anyway, I purchased 2 yards of fabric because that was the minimum. But I think for this project, you only need 1/3 of a yard. I washed my fabric and I put it in the dryer. And I know there's always a debate whether you should, you know, wash your fabric before using it or not. And if it is quilting cotton, I will wash it and dry it because I want to make sure it is completely shrunk before I cut it and make the product. I don't want it to shrink after it's made. So as I was looking at the measurements from the other people who have made this project before, some of them say to cut the scarf side, you know, the one around your neck, 42 inches long. But when I do that and I kind of put the 42 inches around my neck, the towels will be kind of short for my taste. I want the length to be longer because I want the towels to be kind of like at hip level. So that means that the scarf side will have to kind of end by my waist, and then you have the distance of the towel. And I can, you know, I can test different sizes because obviously if somebody's taller or somebody's shorter, it will pretty much depend on that. I can assume. But when I did that, when I took the measurement and I measured around the back here, you know, the length that I came up with was 53 inches. It is kind of long, I think, but that's what I came up with. So, I'm going to leave it at 53 inches, even with a seam allowance, because I need to have a seam allowance for both ends of the scarf so that I can insert the towels, right? So that's what I was thinking out. I cut the fabric already by 1 yard, and I probably should have left it with a 2 yards so that I could have a whole strip of 53 inches long, but I didn't. So I'm going to have to cut 2 pieces of fabric and then join them kind of here on the back in the middle, and join them together and then join the towels at the bottom. So the 53, actually I'm going to leave it 53, and that's going to include the seam allowance for the top, you know, where I'm going to join the 2 pieces of fabric, and the seam allowance on the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. Half of the 53 inches is 26.5. So I have my piece of fabric here, and I measured on my cutting table 26.5, and then I'm just going to cut the distance here. I'm just gonna trim off the rest. Actually, before I do that, I don't want to cut off all of it. I'm actually going to open it one single layer. That's what I'm going to do, because I'm thinking the width, I also have to take that into consideration. And this is the towel I want to use for this project. The normal width of these towels, once it's done, like once they're folded, is 6 to 6.5 inches. And so this one, so it's just gonna be like this. So I can make that width 6 inches, no problem. So I have to take into consideration the seam allowance for when I join the two pieces of fabric as well. So I'm going to only make it, I'm only gonna stitch it one seam along the back, not two seams on the side. So if I want it to be 6 inches wide, I have to add at least a 1/4 inch on each side. So 6.5 inches is the width of my scarf. And then the length is going to be 26.5 inches. And I'm gonna do 2 of those. So I'm going to cut it now 7 inches wide along the length, and then I'm going to cut off the extra 1/2 inch. And then here I'm gonna do 6.5 inches. Okay, so I can cut off that extra fabric there. So I ended up cutting 4 pieces of material. The final measurement was 25 inches by 6.5. And the length ended up being 25 inches, which is a total of 50. I know it's less than what I was saying originally. I wanted it 53 inches, but as I was cutting it, I got really confused. I don't know why, but it was a mess, okay? And so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it this way and see how it turns out. And then the other one, I'll do it. If I want to make it longer, then I can do it longer. Something else I did during the cutting of the fabric was I cut both sides of the fabric. I've cut 2 rectangles, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to cut a wider rectangle, one piece, really wide, because I wanted to fold it and do the seam on the back, kind of like how you do the straps. But again, I started cutting and I forgot all about it. So now I have 4 pieces of material. It's okay. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to take your two pieces of the materials, right sides together like this, and you're going to join them along one of the sides that is 6.5 inches wide. And I'm gonna pick a couple of pins, and then you're gonna take the other one and do the same. So right sides together, only on one side, and we're gonna take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch them at 1/4 inch seam allowance, about 3.5 millimeter stitch length. Just a quick tip, and this is why I always take a little scrap of material before I start stitching my actual piece, because for some reason my bobbin is giving me a hard time. It's not stitching and it's making a mess. Quilting cotton is very forgiving, but still, you always want to test or get started with a scrap piece of fabric before you start stitching your actual piece. So let me wind this bobbin, another one, and let's start again. Seam allowance, give and take. Remember to back stitch a couple of stitches and then continue. Back stitch, 1, 2, continue, and then I'm going to just put the other piece here, back stitch, so once we have that done, the next thing to do is join both strips of fabric along the sides. So we're going to stitch them all along from one edge to the other using a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. And I'm just gonna put some pins here or clips, whatever you have, to help the material stay in place. What's more important than anything is to match the two seams, because you know you want it to be nice and even. So we're just going to take this again to the sewing machine and do the exact same thing. A 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides, that side and this side and the other side, and we're leaving the opening here open. You're not gonna close this yet. So before I join these two pieces together along the sides, I am going to measure 1/2 inch on each end that it's not stitched together, the open ends right here. And I'm going to fold them towards the wrong side of the fabric and press them like this. That way I can already have my seam allowance done. And now let's go ahead and press the seams open. So what I do is that I open my seam like that, and I only press one side, and that it's enough. Just one side right there. Okay. After I do that, I'm going to turn the entire piece, the entire tube, right side out, and press it again. Because pressing your material or your product throughout the process, it's what makes it look nice and professional. It's pressing it and matching all the seams. Those little details really make a difference. One thing I noticed is that actually, I'll be honest, I did not add woven interfacing to my fabric here. And I think for the next one, I am going to add woven interfacing, because not that it's going to change the drape of the fabric, it's not, but it adds a little bit of protection, like a layer of protection, especially because this is going to be used a lot, you know, in the kitchen. So a lot of wear and tear, washing it, all of that. So I think for the next one, I'm definitely going to add woven interfacing. So let's go ahead and get this done. Consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel if you have learned something today. So as you can see, I pressed it. The reason why I wanted to do just one seam along the center here is because of all the pressing, right? You want to try to make things faster. So one stitch, one pressing instead of double. So that's why the next one, definitely I'm going to, you know, do that. But anyway, it's fine. What I need to do next is, actually, what I'm going to do next is cut the towel and insert it here. And when we take it to the sewing machine, we're gonna stitch all of it at once. Just trying to think of ways that I can make this where I just go to the sewing machine once, where I go to the iron just, you know, once or twice, but make it easier and faster. As you can see, I have here my tube all done and everything looks nice and even. I press the seams flat, so you push the seams as much as you can and it's pressed. And here the stitching matches on one side. Now on this side it doesn't match, but it's fine. Okay, the towel. So here's my towel. I'm just going to cut it in half. Okay, so this towel is, how long is this towel? 28 inches long. Wow, pretty long. Yeah, 28 inches. So I'm just gonna fold it in half like this, and I am going to cut it. So I have one half here and then the other half. And you want to make this fit the end of your tube here. So you just want to insert this right here. So I'm just gonna scrunch it up like this and I'm just gonna insert it. And I'm going to insert it where, you know, this is 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm trying to match both edges as much as possible. Okay, like this. And I don't want it to be uneven, so I'm just trying to place it here in a way that it's along the seam, along the edge of my seam allowance. There. You can also take this like this and kind of join it together using a piece of thread. And so the way you do this is we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch it. We're going to baste stitch it along the very top edge. And when I mean baste stitch it, you're going to do maybe 4 millimeter stitch length, and or the highest, the longest, sorry, stitch length your machine lets you stitch. And you're going to do that right over along the very top edge. And then we're going to pull it and that creates the ruffle. So let's do that. So my machine longest stitch length is 5 millimeters, which is pretty long. What I want to do is have enough thread here, a tail of my thread pretty long, and I'm just going to start stitching along the very edge of my piece of fabric, you know, maybe like a 1/4 inch seam allowance or somewhere in there. Do not backstitch in this case. And then you're going to also have a long tail of thread here. Okay, so here it is. Once you do that, you're going to open that thread like this. So separate them. Okay, you're gonna separate your two tails of thread and just pick one and start pulling. And as you're pulling, your fabric starts shrinking and it gets, you know, it becomes a ruffle. Now be careful because you don't want to pull the thread so much that it breaks. Okay, you gotta go slowly in this process and maybe open the thread here on the other side as well. Okay, and just pull at the same time, and you're just gonna go slowly. Until you reach the 6 millimeter, the 6 inches. There are other methods. There are feet that you can use. There's a ruffle foot. You can also like do it manually and then run it under the sewing machine, but I find this to be okay for me, for what I, you know. And if I find that I'm making several of these, then maybe I will find like another method, but this works. And it makes it even, so you can, you know, you can like spread this so that it makes it even for you and nice. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So I just need 1/2 inch more, and I can just pull from one of these sides. Maybe not. Sometimes it won't let you, but so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. See? And it looks even and it just looks nice. Okay. So now I am going to insert this in one of the sides of my tube. I'm going to cut some of this thread. It's just in the way. And it's not perfect. You just want the ruffles to be even and to this to be, you know, 6 inches or close to 6 inches. Because then you're going to squeeze it some more once you insert it. So pick one side of your tube that is open, and now you're just going to insert that in there. And again, you don't want it to go, you don't want it to be like at the very edge. You want some fabric in there. Like if you can do like 1 inch, you know, that's even better. You just want as much as you can in there. You want to be able to catch it with the layers of material and in between the tube and all of that. So it looks pretty nice to me. And let's see, I'm gonna cut this piece of thread as well. Where's my, okay, there it is. Okay. And I just want this to be even, you know, just want to make sure that it's not crooked. Okay. Now take it to your sewing machine. I'm going to put pin here. I hope this pin holds it. Yeah, it does. Okay. And there. Did it break? Yes, it broke. Oh my goodness. Okay. There's pins. Okay, there you go. There. You can also, if you want, put a piece of double-sided tape inside so that it stays in place. If you don't feel confident that it's going to stay put, you can always just take a little piece of double-sided tape, put it here, and stick your towel to that side. It really is up to you, whatever you feel it's easier. But I think this is good. Gosh, a lot of thread, okay? Yeah, okay. And we can do that for the other one. Let me make the ruffles on this one, and I'll bring my double-sided tape and we can try that on the other one to see if that's easier. Perfect. So I have my towel here. I'm making my ruffles and I'm just, carefully pulling all of it. If you're using good thread, your thread should not break easily, okay? So just keep that in mind when you are sewing and making things. Oh, my neighbor. Sorry if you hear the sound of the lawnmower. I never know when my neighbor is going to cut his grass. They pay somebody, so it's either, I never know, it's random. It's just whatever day of the week. I can never know. So I cannot plan the recording based on when he's gonna cut the grass. So whatever. Okay, here's my double-sided tape. Let's try doing that with the double-sided tape, probably easier. I just take a little piece and just press it along the seam. And peel it off. Then take my piece. Now make sure that if you have the right and wrong side. So this is my right side, this is my wrong side of the towel. So my tube is not twisted, and okay, and this is the right side, and this is the right side. Okay, I just open it and insert my towel here. Okay, so that's it. It's nice and it's in there, and just making sure that the ends here are not twisted. Beautiful. I'm going to take this now to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch this. Here's how we're going to do this. You're going to stitch this at about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance here along the edge. I would do it twice. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start here at the bottom, go all the way across. Then I'm going to stitch all along the tube, all along the tube, all the way to the other side. Then I am going to, again, stitch underneath it, like here, right? And then do all along the tube, all the way to the other side. What I may do is go back and do another stitch over the original, and then come back here and do another stitching over the original, or right next to it, make a design or something, because this is going to be the area where it's going to take the most wear and tear. And you don't want the towel to come loose. Okay, so use maybe a 3.5 stitch length for your stitching, not something really long, so that it can be tight and nice. Okay, let's do that. Oh my gosh, we're almost ready. Yay! Oh, this is gonna be fun. Was able to stitch all of it, right? However, I'm using my Brother SE 1900, which is not, it's a domestic sewing machine. And it does not like the bulkiness. I can already tell. Look, it's just, it doesn't matter how much I stitch over it. When it gets to this point here, it won't stitch. Like it stops stitching. Like it continues, it goes through like no problem. But when I go back to look at it, it's not stitched. I did it on this side because I went over it, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times, and I spread it, the towel, more evenly so it's less bulky on one area. And that kind of worked because I still have a little piece here that it didn't stitch. So other than that, it looks really nice. You know, I stitch all the sides, and you want to do that because when, you know, somebody washes this or in the use of it, you don't want this to open. But I am definitely, for all the other ones I'm going to make, I am definitely using my Yuki 2010, what's my Yuki? My Yuki, wait a second, I'll tell you in just a second. My Yuki TL 2010Q. It's a semi-industrial sewing machine, and it will go through all these layers with no problem. So test your sewing machine before you start making this project to make sure that that it goes through all the layers, that you can actually stitch it in place and with no problems. So that is something that definitely take into consideration, but it looks very, very nice, very pretty. Let's see if this length works. And here I am in my kitchen. Look, the size is perfect. I think this worked out. Probably the original size that I was thinking was going to be too long. So this actually worked out really good. You can have your towels right here. Grab whatever it is that you have on the stove, or wipe something off, or open something, and you can, yeah, we're not cooking right now. And it's perfect. It is really, really nice. This is the perfect length. And look at that. You can just wipe your hands off, dry your hands. Amazing. Wow, that went so smoothly and so fast. So now I'm going to do this other side that it just never was able to stitch it. I don't know why the machine, I guess it is too thick there, so. Beautiful. Of course, the other one looks kind of weird because I stitched over it so much, but great. Now it's good. Now it's perfect. The stitching is nice. It's double stitching, which is what you want here for this. It is exactly what you want for this area of the scarf towel, because that's where it's going to, all the action is going to happen right there. But for being the tester, the simple run, it really turned out really nice. And I ended up not using any of the measurements from the other videos because, I don't know, common sense, right? Or some trial and error. But there it is.